Welcome to this episode of the One Door Workshop. Today we're going to build this wooden flag. So these flags are relatively easy to build, provided that you take the time to do the legwork and make sure that you get the right materials. We'll kind of discuss that later on. We started out using 1x2 furring strips, which of course are made out of fur, and then we found out that those weren't actually the right size. Again, we'll cover that later on. We also made the union portion out of 1x12 pine, which of course we had to cut down into our proper lengths. So we got all of our pieces cut and set, and then went to work on the next portion, which was burning. Burning actually took a good chunk of the time because we had to do some practicing on some pieces that we weren't going to be using in this particular project. You have to learn how far away to hold the torch, you have to learn how fast or slow to move it back and forth, you have to learn to not stop at any one location too long. There's just a little bit of a learning curve. So if you want to burn wood, it looks great, but you've got to make sure you take the time to practice before you start actually working on your piece. You want to make sure you get a nice, clean, even look. And this is how Sarah spends her time in the shop, burning things.
This is my new Christmas present.
Do you find this cathartic?
So fun.
Once you get the burn done, then you have to go and paint the pieces. We unfortunately didn't record ourselves painting any of the red, but we do have this here of us painting the blue union. We used Minwax transparent stain. We stained it true blue, or we had it tinted true blue, and we had the red tinted, I believe it was called scarlet. We burned the wood first, then the semi-transparent stain allows the burn to actually show through, which gives it nice texture and all of that good stuff. And here is us carving the union on our X-Carve. So in getting our flag put together, the instructions we were following said to use 1x2 material for the stripes and to burn it. And then they said that the union should be 10.5 by 14.25. So we cut our union to 10.5 by 14.25. And when we went to put our 1x2s together, now I know dimensional lumber is always shorter than what it says, but apparently this stuff is extra short. So we're off by about 1/4 inch. So thankfully, we have another board there that we're going to cut down to match the actual size of these 1x2s, and then we'll re-put it through the CNC machine to get a new union at the right size. What are we gonna do with this one? I don't know. It looks cool all by itself, so we might just hang it up someplace. So we've got our properly sized union. We had to recut it and then re-CNC it. The other union is over there. We're going to find another use for it at some point. I don't know. I think it's cool looking by itself. So what we're going to do is we're gonna flip this flag over on its front, and we're going to glue it up and then clamp it and make a flag. Okay, so I've got the flag flipped over on its face. I've stood all of the pieces up on end because that's where we're going to glue. I only need to glue one side, so I've got these with the top, and as I glue, I'm just gonna lay these down and stick them close together. And then we'll grab the clamps once we've got everything glued up, squeeze it together, and we'll let it dry. You wanna make sure not to use too much glue because you don't want it to squeeze out onto the face of your flag. You also want to make sure that you have a red stripe on the top and a red stripe on the bottom. Make sure your spacings are done before you glue it together. That's not a mess you want to clean up. So I want to cover what we discovered. The 1x2s in the video that we watched were actually pine 1x2, not fir 1x2. And that made a big difference as to the size of the union. The fir 1x2 we used are just furring strips, and they run much, much smaller than the pine 1x2. We went back to the hardware store, we bought some of the pine 1x2s, and they actually fit the original union that we had carved, the 14.25 by 10.5. So we were able to use that union in another flag. Personally, I think the pine looks better than the furring strips do, but we've had some people say they like the furring strips because they're much rougher. It gives it an even more rustic look overall. Either one can be useful. You just want to make sure that you measure out your 1x2 to make sure that you cut your union to the proper size. And if you're buying a pre-made union, you want to make sure that you actually get the boards that will fit that union. You don't want to have to cut it down after it's been carved. That's going to throw off your entire look. So, this is the completed flag. Colors, white, burn, stars, clear polyurethane coating. If you're going to be hanging this outside, you want to make sure that you use an outdoor polyurethane, like a marine varnish or a boat varnish, something along those lines. If you're going to hang it inside, you can use pretty much whatever you want. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the One Door Workshop, and we'll see you next time. And if you think about it, click on that little subscribe box. Keep this from popping up while I'm working on nailing this, and we're going to record this, so just look like you're having a good time.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm recording. Oh, you're so cute. Stop it. Like this one?
I don't even know what you want me to say.
Say something cute.